All right, today we're going to talk about a massive shift happening in the world of agriculture. It's this move away from just taking from the land and toward actively partnering with it. It's really the story of how farming can actually heal the planet while, still feeding all of us.
So to really get this, you have to understand a huge difference in how we see things. For so long, we've treated farms kind of like factories, right? You put in your inputs, you get your products out, and over time, the whole system just gets worn down. But the regenerative way, it sees a farm as a living, breathing organism. It's this complex, self-sustaining web where everything, and I mean everything, is connected. It is a total game changer. Okay, so first up, let's get into this new philosophy. At its heart, it's all about shifting from a mindset of just taking to one of cooperating deeply with nature. And really, this one idea is the key to everything. It's not just about, changing a few farming methods here and there. It's about seeing the entire farm as one single living thing. And once you see it that way, well, that's what unlocks all the practical steps we're going to talk about. So you might be asking, how does this philosophy actually work in the real world? Well, it all boils down to 4 key pillars. And these are principles that we've borrowed directly from nature's playbook for building amazing, healthy soil. All right, first pillar, minimal disturbance. For generations, we were taught that plowing was absolutely essential for farming. But it turns out all that heavy tilling, it's basically like setting off an earthquake for the trillions of tiny creatures living in the soil. It just shatters their homes and wrecks the delicate structure that plants need to thrive. So rule number 1 is simple. Leave the soil alone as much as you can. And here's exactly why that disturbance is so bad. Way down in the soil, there are these fungi that create a substance called glomalin. The best way to think of it is like a soil glue. It's this amazing stuff that binds everything together, creating this perfect spongy structure that can hold on to water and nutrients. When you plow, you literally destroy that glue, and that's when you get erosion and compacted soil. No-till farming, it keeps that crucial glue intact. And the impact here, it's just staggering. Get this, just by not plowing, these farms can pull up to 1 whole ton of carbon from the atmosphere and lock it away in the soil per hectare every single year. So this isn't just about making the farm healthier, it's a seriously powerful tool for fighting climate change. Okay, pillar number 2 is all about diversity. I mean, think about it. Nature never plants just one thing for miles and miles, right? It's always this rich, complex mix of different plants. So regenerative farming just mimics that. You plant different crops together, or you rotate them, and what you get is a much stronger, more resilient system that can fight off pests and feed the soil all on its own. And here's the really cool science behind why this works. Different plants are kind of like different chefs, and they're all cooking up unique meals for the microbes in the soil. They release these specific compounds from their roots, things like citric and malic acids, and those feed very specific types of bacteria and fungi. And what do they do in return? They unlock nutrients in the soil that the plants need. It's this beautiful symbiotic buffet happening right under our feet. Next up, pillar number 3. You have to keep the soil covered. Always. Think about it. Bare soil is vulnerable. It gets absolutely baked by the sun, hammered by rain, and just blown away by the wind. So what you do is you use cover crops. They act like a living blanket, or maybe even better, like a living skin for the earth, protecting the soil and all the precious life inside it. And get this, some of these cover crops have what is basically a superpower. Legumes are a great example. They team up with these bacteria called rhizobium, and these tiny little partners can pull nitrogen, which is a super important plant food, right out of the air and fix it in the soil. They are literally creating free, natural fertilizer right there on the farm. And that brings us to our 4th and final pillar, integrating livestock. Now, in a regenerative system, animals are not just a separate thing you raise for meat or milk. No, they are a critical, integrated part of the entire system. They graze, they trample the ground in a good way, and, most importantly, they fertilize. They're what closes that nutrient loop and really kickstarts the whole soil-building machine. I love this way of thinking about it. Animals are the engines of the nutrient loop. I mean, they take all this plant matter that would take forever to break down, they process it, and they put it back into the soil as this perfectly balanced, super rich fertilizer. They basically just speed up the entire cycle of life on the farm. So when you put all 4 of these pillars together, minimal disturbance, diversity, cover crops, and animals, you create something pretty incredible. It's basically nature's perfect recycling system, a system where the whole idea of waste pretty much just vanishes. People call this the living heart of the farm, this idea of closing the loop. It means every single output, whether it's leftover crop stalks or animal manure, becomes a valuable input for some other part of the system. Absolutely nothing is wasted. Everything gets recycled, and it all goes to fuel the health of the entire farm. And just to give you an idea of the scale we're talking about, a single dairy cow can produce up to 25 kilos of nutrient-rich manure every single day. Now, when you compost that and put it back on the land, what you're doing is making a massive, continuous deposit into your farm's soil fertility bank account. And what you get is this amazing virtuous cycle. By recycling all this organic matter, the soil ends up storing 20 to 30% more carbon. And that carbon-rich soil, it acts just like a sponge, which means it gets way better at holding on to water. And that, as you can imagine, is a huge, huge advantage when droughts hit. Okay, so this all sounds fantastic for the planet, right? But I know what you're thinking. Does it actually work for the farmers? Is it profitable? Let's talk about the money side of things, how we make this whole system work from field to market. Now, what's so important to get here is that this isn't some risky all-or-nothing jump. Farmers can actually transition step by step. They can start by just adding some compost and cutting back on chemical fertilizers. Then maybe they introduce cover crops. After that, they can start phasing in natural pest management. And eventually, they can get to a place where they're creating all their inputs right there on the farm. It's a manageable journey that really lowers the financial risk. And here is the big economic payoff. Because they're creating their own fertilizer and their own pest control, farmers can slash their input costs, the money they spend on synthetic stuff, by as much as 70%. That is a massive, massive boost to their profits. And it's not just about saving money either. There are all these new ways emerging to actually reward farmers for doing this. You've got community-based certifications that build trust with customers, which lets farmers charge more. You see direct sales models that increase their profits. And now there are even these new carbon credit markets where farmers can literally get paid for the carbon they're putting back into the soil. It's pretty amazing. All right, let's zoom out for a second and look at the really big picture here. Because this is about so much more than just a few farming techniques. This is a vision for how we can tackle some of the biggest challenges facing our world today. Ultimately, the whole goal here is to completely change how we think about the environment. To stop seeing it as something to be exploited or as a cost on a balance sheet, and to start seeing it for what it is, our most valuable asset, an asset that we can actually grow and then pass on to the next generation, even healthier than we found it. And so that really leaves us with a powerful question to think about. If we start to see our soil not just as dirt, but as a complex, living organism that sustains all of us, what changes? How do we become better partners, better caretakers, better stewards of that life?